welcome to episode 2 of the David Nassau Show. I am David Nassau, and I'm very excited to bring our second episode live for you guys here on Facebook, and some of you guys might be joining us later on the internet on YouTube and other platforms. But I'm super excited to introduce Sarah Yorens here. And Sarah graduated college without a single student loan debt, which is very rare in this day and age. However, she got introduced to the power of credit cards and ended up in a huge debt anyway. She didn't have a clue how much she owed up until 2018 when she decided that enough is enough. She created a plan to pay off the last $10,000 of her debt in under 7 months while also planning a long distance move out of state with her new husband. Along the way, she realized that a monthly budget is another powerful tool to help her get out of debt, as well as any other financial goals she might want to achieve in the future. And now she's on her way to having $20,000 in her emergency fund by the end of this year, 2021. And if you want to start your own budget or have no clue how to, please download Sarah's budget startup kit in the link in the description here of this video. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce Sarah. Welcome to the David Nassau Show. I'm super excited to have you on board. How are you doing today? Whoop, whoop. Yeah, yeah, totally. I'm super excited to have you. Yeah, we definitely got connected through Instagram, the power of social media, right? How about that? It's definitely something super exciting, especially again in this day and age with, us young newcomers and these millennials, these technology enthusiasts. And so sometimes, yeah, yeah. Ooh, 1 second. I realized, I apologize that you were on mute that whole time. I'm so sorry. Again, we're just going up here.
No
John,
worries.
I appreciate the comments. You're always the man when you tell me that. So, I mean, again, I said that I was muting as you were going on board, but Sarah,
Hmm.
I apologize again. But yeah,
No worries.
you're live and I'm pretty sure people can hear you now. But yeah, we were just talking about how old we feel, and with new technologies, new apps, new
Yeah.
social media platforms, which you're also very active on, obviously. So one other thing that brought us to that was we connected on Instagram, and
Hmm.
I appreciate you responding to my messages here. And you're also, speaking of being new and hip, you're also uh, really big on TikTok too. So I will give you a little shout out there, a little plug. And so you're
I
definitely
tried.
you're doing the things, I'm not on TikTok yet, so you're beating me to that. So a little
But
more
you
of a
will after this, right?
yeah, exactly. I really should. I need to definitely have I really do need to have a TikTok at this point. Um
Yeah.
so, that said, we connected through Instagram because you're again very active on the platform talking about personal finance and budgeting and sharing your journey, which I really appreciate you being super transparent about. But before we dive super deep into these money related budget conversations, would love to get to know
Hmm.
you a little bit more, your history, and how you got to where you are today. So I guess if you want to take it over from here. I know I just did a pretty decent intro based off of the
Hmm.
bio that you had sent over, but if you want to tell us about yourself in your words, take it away.
Well, hello everybody. My name is Sarah. I live in Las Vegas, which is right now it's getting to like the 90s, so we're getting ready for the summertime. It's gonna be really hot. My husband and I, we got married in 2017. And even when we got married, I already told him that, hey, I have a lot of debt, just so you know. And I think he was surprised at first. I never really hide anything from him, and he know like how much debt I had. Um, but then, like David said earlier in 2018, I just said that enough is enough. I don't want to live like this anymore. I felt like I was broke. I felt like I was living paycheck to paycheck. But then at that time, one of the things that we really wanted to do was to pay off our debt because that was something that was like a burden on our shoulders all of the time. And that's when I kind of found Dave Ramsey, and I kind of follow like his baby steps on how, you need to start budgeting, and then you need to follow all of these other things. And he kind of gave, a bunch of like pretty good advice for me, at least, on how to pay off my debt. And I was able to do that in under 7 months while still kind of planning moving out of state and trying not to get into debt again. But that is where kind of like brought me here. I realized that with a monthly budget, like you can do so much more. Like if you felt like you were broke or you live paycheck to paycheck, like I can assure you that you are not. Like as long as you know how much you make every single month, as long as you pre-plan, where all of that money that you made go, like you would be able to do anything you want with your money. And yeah, that's where we are. We used to live in California. Now we're in Nevada and Las Vegas because everything is much cheaper here and you can kind of stretch your dollar a bit more.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's where we are.
were you one of the Californians that made the move during the pandemic, or was that before the
N-
pandemic?
It was actually before we
Nice.
moved here early 2019.
Nice. So yeah, you are a little
Yeah.
bit ahead of the curve, little hipster. And
Yeah.
so very cool,
Yeah.
very cool. And I will also say for those who are watching, please feel free to
Hmm.
engage in the comments, ask questions, and be a part of this conversation as we continue at all points. If you want to, ask again some questions or respond or react, feel free to do so.
Hmm.
But yeah, so. Thank you for sharing some of that background. And I'd also like to say, tell us a little bit more about your family, right? Tell us more about your family dynamics growing up and your perspective on money when you were a kid, some of your first kind of memories
Hmm.
around money exactly.
I think when I was growing up, I actually was born and raised in Jakarta, Indonesia.
Questions or
Then I moved
respond or
to Los Angeles, I think when I was 15. And all like my childhood, I would say that I was very privileged. I never had, I never see my parents, fighting about money or, just having issues with money. Like, I know that my dad worked really hard and he always provide for our family, and there's just never really any hardship, which I'm so thankful for. But they never really teach me about how to handle money. Like once I make my own money, like I never know how to handle it. And I think that's one of the reasons why I got into debt. Once you apply for your first credit card, you get so excited that, oh my gosh, I can buy anything I want, but then not really knowing that, you have to pay that back. Or if not, then they would charge you a really high interest or something like that. So,
yeah, with that specifically, right? I think that
hmm
credit cards specifically are interesting, but before we get there, um,
hmm
with your family dynamics and talking about money, was that a lot of like the discussion? What was your first memory around like actually going out and spending and or going out and realizing that money was money that would actually be able to buy things, right? Do you have any real recollection of that first type like moment? Um,
I think I remember like when we were little, I have two younger sisters and we're like a family of girls. Only my dad is like the dude. So my sisters and my mom would, I remember when we would go out to the mall and we would, go shopping. And sometimes I don't really feel like I want to, go shopping because I don't know, like I just want to do something else, like stay home or something. But I think my mom was the one who was kind of like a shopper. Maybe she likes to, because she has girls, so she can dress us up. Like me and my second sister is actually pretty close in age. We're only a year apart. So I remember growing up, we would always dress the same almost. Like she would have a blue dress, I would have a pink dress, or vice versa. So I think that's like one of the early memories or experience that I remember
mhm.
actually like spending money. And I think I remember like when I was maybe in elementary school, like we always eat at home, because my mom loves to cook. She always wanted to have like a restaurant. But then I remember, I think in sixth or seventh grade, like when I was a bit older, we started going out to eat. And I think that's when I kind of like fall in love with like eating out. And that's what like my husband and I do all the time here, especially in Vegas. There's like a lot of new restaurants that we've never tried before. So that's also another way for us to spend, our money recklessly. And I think that's one of the reasons why I also got into that, because we love to go out to eat.
Food in Vegas is so good. You have some of the best chefs, some of the best cuisines, and it's
Seriously.
so good, so good. And
Hmm.
but so we've obviously talked about credit cards and credit card debt, and I know that's definitely something that again was one of your moments of realization of like, oh, enough is enough. What are some of your
Yeah.
first, do you remember getting your first credit card in the mail, or you get, first like credit card offer in the
Yeah.
mail? Again, because people, at least in the US, right? I get a whole bunch of junk mail, and like half of it is from credit cards and different offers and signing
Oh,
bonuses
yeah.
and so much of like credit limits and whatnot. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, tell me about that. And when you started going down that route, what was your thought at the time when you were signing up for these different credit cards, and what was that mindset when you were kind of at the beginning stages of really, feeling that you could get these credit cards to buy whatever you wanted, right?
Hmm. I think I remember the first time I got my very first credit card. It was a secured card because I didn't have any credit. So they only gave me like a $500 limit, right? And I think after a few months they keep increasing the limit. And then I remember like my next few cards was one of those store cards. So like if you go to Macy's or um like TJ Maxx or like Old Navy, they are really good at like asking like, hey, do you want to save 15% today? If you want to sign up for this card. So like my next big credit cards, like, was like store cards because I also love to go shopping. And of course, if they offer me like a percentage off, I would take that. And it's just kind of like snowballing from there. And then I always talk to my husband like how, like, we also used to move a lot. Like maybe every year we would always move to a different apartment. And those like pre-approval letters would always follow us. And
Hmm.
sometimes they would get like my sister's name on my address. And we were like, how do they know? It was
Yeah.
so crazy. But that was like the first memory about like my credit card. And
Do you
yeah.
remember how old you were at that time?
I'm pretty sure I was in college, maybe after college.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
was a little late, like I wasn't a teenager when I got my first credit card, which was kind of good, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I do remember one specific story on my end that I'll share.
Hmm.
I must have been like elementary school, not even middle school yet. And
Uh-huh.
I obviously, people who know me know that I do love my name. I just think it's a cool name, and I really enjoy, stuff with my name
Hmm.
on it. And my, I got this mail, right? When mail, first time I got mail that had my name on it, and like one of the first times, and it had this random credit card that was clearly it was a fake credit card, but it just like
Oh
had
yeah.
my
Hmm.
name engraved
Yeah.
on it, and it didn't
Yeah.
have any like dollar amount attached. But I just loved that this was the thing, and my mom saw it, and she was like freaking out. She was like, she like cut it up, and she's like, "You're never like, oh my God!" And it was like scarring almost.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh.
but I just was like, I'm not gonna spend it. It says my name on it, and that's why I wanted to keep it. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, and then so at your, as you started, even like again like recent college grad type years, getting these credit cards, like tell us about. Do you remember the amount of like numbers of credit cards you have and or had? And how
Hmm.
did you? What was your mindset of using each of them? Did you? Use all of them equally, or how did you diversify your spending within each credit card? Did you have a system with your credit cards as well? Like, did you actually feel like you were doing this for good and you actually were just being smart, or did you actually know that it was reckless as well,
I think I always say seven was like my credit cards, like how many I have, but I'm pretty sure I have more than that.
Well,
Like I think I've closed a couple credit cards as well. And I think I don't really have like a strategy on how to use it, because I think at the time I just didn't want to even know like what the balance is. So whenever I try to like purchase something, I always kind of check like, okay, which one of these cards have like the lowest balance, and which one I can put like a couple $100 more before I have to like, pay a lot of interest. And I think it's also because some of them are, like a newer card, and then it has like those um 0% APR for 24 months, and that's kind of like when they also get you, because then, oh, I want to get like $1,000 computer or whatever. So I'm going to open a new card and I'm going to pay it off in 12 months or whenever without the interest. But then you don't really end up doing that because you keep adding, buying something else other than your computer, and just the balance keeps going up.
Yeah. And then with paying it off over time,
Mm-hmm.
if were you simply just not be at the zero APR, you didn't have to actually pay it off at all for the first 12 months. Uh, when did you
Mm-hmm.
start actually paying off the credit cards as far as like just putting a little bit of money, paying
Mm-hmm.
off a little bit at a time? And also, a question I have is, do you remember what the percentages of APR was after that year expired?
Probably like really high. I think
Yeah.
American Express probably has the highest interest at like 21 to 23%, I think. Um, I have Capital One, and I think that one is a bit lower, but it's still about 18 to 22%. But I think when I really want to pay it off is during like 2018, like about a year after we got married. And what I did was just that, we have to get on a budget, and we need to see like how much we make every month and see if we can allocate some of our income, to pay these cards off. So I always tell my husband, like, hey, let's try not to use the credit cards that we're trying to pay off because I don't want to keep building balances in there. So that's the first thing that we did. I think we sit down together, like, break down like how much money we make from our paychecks, and then also look into like how much we spend every single month for like rent and bills and food and coffees and all of that, and see like how much we have left. And I think at the time when it was around 2018, we have about basically about $3,000 left every single month after we subtract our monthly bills that we have to pay for every single month from our income. And I think at the time, I was telling my husband like, hey, we can use maybe $700 of this, of the 3,000, to pay off our card, and then use the rest of them for all of our other expenses, like for going out, for all of that. But then he actually the one who was challenging me, like, hey, what if we double up on that and we actually pay off our card in half of the time that we were trying to pay it off? So we actually allocated $1,500 every single month to pay off that last $1,000. So we were able to do it like in about 6 to 7 months.
Awesome.
And I think when I was telling my friends that, like, they were saying like, oh my gosh, you're crazy, like how, like $1,500 every single month, that's a lot of money. But honestly, like, it's not that I'm trying to brag, but like once you know how much you make every single month, like, you have the money. And I feel like that's the time when I feel like, oh my gosh, I have money, I'm not broke. Like, if I just need to be organized with my money, and I'll be able to do whatever I want with my money.
Right. And we will definitely be getting into those breakdowns shortly. And I
Mm-hmm.
love those conversations you guys were having and as a couple, uh, those conversations must be really intense, really at least to start, I'm sure. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but before, when it comes to paying it off early though, and in bulk as you did, you know, with such high interest rates that could be in the high teens or like 20 plus percent, uh,
Mm-hmm.
did you guys ever do the calculation on how much money you actually saved yourselves by paying it off early rather than actually waiting, like paying it off
Mm-hmm.
over time? And the reason I ask is like inflation's, let's just say like 2%, 3% at most,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Maybe this year might be a little bit strange, but you know, if you're only paying it off at the minimum amount, I don't know if you guys ever did that calculation.
I don't think we did, because at the time I was just like, you know what, let's just do it and just go for it. Like, I
Yeah,
don't even want to think about, how much we would save. I just want to have that zero balance
yeah.
at the end of that 7 months or 6 months or whatever.
I mean, that's the right mentality to have. Just like again, debt, most debt is not good. There's some good debt, but most debt is probably not the best, especially credit
Yeah.
card debt is notorious, right?
Yeah, the
But
one we had, at least it was bad.
yeah, and I do want to ask before we get more further into crunching the numbers is, how was how did you handle the conversation? I assume that you and your partner were dating at the time for a little bit, and when
Mm-hmm.
you first told him that you had some debt, like what was you don't have to go into too much detail, obviously, but like wh- how did you handle that? How was that conversation? Like what was it like? And like how did how was it how was it done in a sense, right?
I guess I just kind of like told him out of nowhere, and I guess he was a bit surprised because he knows that I do, go shopping or whatever, but he never know that I would have a lot of debt like that. Um but I feel like at the time he was actually the one who was spending more money, but he was really good at it. Like he never really put it on his credit card, or like he probably does for like his everyday purchases, but he always paid off at the end of the month,
Mm,
but he never really had a budget. So I don't know how he did it, but he was definitely shocked. And I think at the time, because I was listening to Dave Ramsey, and people can have their own ways to deal with money, like as a couple. But I told him that, hey, we're getting married, so let's join our finances together, and you can help me pay off my dad. Like I think at first he was kind of hesitant because obviously he wants to, use his money for whatever it is that he wants. But then I was telling him that, like, once we pay off this credit card debt, like whatever money we make together, then we can do whatever we want with it. Because I think a lot of people think about paying off debt, it's like forever, but it's not. It's just temporary. When when we were both trying to pay off our debt, it was only for 7 months of paying this debt. And after that, whatever, money that we used to use to pay off our credit card, we can actually use it to do whatever we want. So
right.
it's probably going to be tough. You just have to kind of have the same goals with your money if you're like a married couple. But people can do it however they want. That's just what works for me and my husband.
Right. And so I assume joint bank accounts, like all the accounts are together. And that
Yeah.
was uh, a I don't know what the right word I'm looking for is the decision, a mutual decision that you guys
Mm-hmm.
both agreed on, and
Yeah.
seems to be working out pretty well, generally speaking, where you guys are on the same page
Yeah.
now and are on the right path,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and are helping each other, which is great. And he sounds like a great person, and sounds like he took it well and was super supportive and is still continuing to support you, which is awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
I try.
yeah,
I
and
pushed
yeah.
him.
Yeah, no, I think that that's what, you hope for in a partner as well, right? I think that, to be that
Mm-hmm.
supportive person that you're able
Yeah.
to help, each other and bounce around,
Mm-hmm.
conversations with that. Um, really at the same time, or as we progress, I want to ask you more about, before we get into the numbers here, really your personal goals and where you see yourself going, like in the next 1, 3, 5 years, like talk about what you think you're going to do and what you really want to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, like you mentioned before, like this year, 2021, I really want to fully fund our emergency fund, and that is about $20,000. And I think before, we start 2021, we already have some money, so we're really like almost halfway, which I'm super excited about. So in a year, hopefully, we'll be able to have our emergency fully funded. But I think the next goal that I want to have with like our finances is to hopefully be able to pay off our house faster than 30 years. Um, and we're also kind of like dabble into like investing. I mean, my husband does separately, but 2021 is also the year where I want to learn more about investing. And then after paying off our mortgage, I don't know, hopefully to have $1 million and become a millionaire.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, and that's interesting. And paying off a mortgage is no joke, obviously. I think
Oh my gosh, yeah.
we can definitely talk about that when we start going down the breakdowns. And let's dive into it, right? So um, I will show up here with let's go into your. Would you like to go into your monthly spending or net assets first? I'll let you decide.
Um, I'll let you decide because it's your show.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. That's fair. So yeah, so let's go into your monthly spending first. All right.
Okay.
So right here on the screen, we have your monthly spending, and I'll go through the percentages in a moment.
Mhm.
And you know, I really quick, obviously, if there's anybody watching that thinks that this is needs to be expanded or enlarged, just let me know, and I will make sure that it is larger, that we can zoom in here for you guys if you want. But yeah, so you also have some cool mnemonics that you work into
Oh
your
yeah.
monthly budget that I'd like to touch on. Obviously, again, you are the budgeting
Yes.
expert here that I think is really exciting to have you on to talk about. But obviously, you know, I mean, I'll let you talk about it if you have it up as well. If you want to walk us through, maybe starting with obviously the biggest expense for most people, including yourselves, is going to be that mortgage slash rent payment. But you also have mortgage and HOA, which is interesting.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, you know what? I can't really see it, but I'm gonna try and remember like what I
Yeah,
gave to you.
yeah. So
But
so
yeah, I guess.
I can walk you through it as well here. So,
Okay. Okay.
mortgage and HOA is 36% of your monthly spending, followed
Hmm.
by grub, which is your food. And again, we'll get into the mnemonics in a second. Grub is
Hmm.
19%. We have eight savings is 18% of your monthly spending. Your allowance, which we'll get into detail with as well, is 11% of your monthly spending. Utilities is 7%. SIP, which is, again, you'll explain in a second, 3%.
Hmm.
Insurances, I assume there are multiple insurances potentially grouped up
Uh-huh.
here for 3%. Subscriptions, which we all love, is 2%. And 1% is WHIP. And so,
Uh-huh.
again, there are some non traditional categories here, but I'd like for you to, again, go into some detail there and then let us know that, you know, your mnemonics, and also maybe walk us through some details with each of those categories if you'd like.
Okay. So basically how I do my monthly budget, I like to break them down into categories. So the first kind of like level of my budget, I divided them into two. So the first one is my absolute expenses, which, you know, it's kind of like this a fancy word that I use for your monthly bills. All of the absolute expenses that you absolutely have to pay for every single month without a doubt. And then the other one is our lifestyle expenses, that where I have that mnemonic swag. So it's easier to remember for me, or maybe for those of you who are trying to like make your budget a bit more organized or a bit, you know, funner to do, because some people don't really like to do their budget. Like I never find it fun before I came with my own little method. So basically, the first category, which was the absolute expenses, usually I would say it would be broken down into housing, like your rent, your mortgage. We live in an HOA community. I think most housing, like in Las Vegas, is part of an HOA. So that is the first thing that we, you know, that is in my monthly budget: mortgage and HOA, which is housing. And then I also have insurance, because we have a separate life insurance. We drive a car, so we have to have insurance. And again, it's one of those kind of like pesky expenses that we have to pay for every single month. Like, even if we don't want to pay for it, they still charge us automatically anyway, right? And then the other absolute expense that I have is our subscription services. So those are stuff like Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, Spotify, your like iPhone payment if you have those Apple upgrade program or whatever. Basically anything like recurring monthly gym membership, all of that. And the last one that I have is utility bills. Obviously, if you live in a house or even in an apartment, you have to pay utility bills. Like I said, even if you don't want to pay for it, they would still charge you automatically anyway, right? So those are
Mhm.
like your absolute expenses, like your expenses that you absolutely have to pay for. So that's like the word absolute, right? And then the other thing is our lifestyle expenses, which I coin as swag. So basically, swag stands for sip, whip, allowance, and grub. So your sip budget is basically drinking related budget. And I'm not talking just about your alcoholic drinks when you go to happy hour, or if you're just drinking at home. I don't know. But it's mostly for like those mindless coffee and boba purchases. You know, they're only like $7 a pop, And when you like spend it like, on the spot, you don't really think about it because it's, cheap, $7. It's nothing, right? But then when you add it up throughout the month, if you track it in your expenses, it's gonna add up to a lot. Just to be transparent, we have a budget for our sip for $200, and it's because we love boba. There's a bunch of boba places here in Vegas, and because my husband works at the office and I work at home, so as like a, I guess, incentive for him to get up in the morning, I let him go get coffee like 3 times a week or something. And then WIP is basically for your transportation related budget. If you drive a car, if you use rideshare, or if you have to take the bus, or if you have to pay for parking permit, like I would also budget for that. And then allowance is obviously for your allowance. Even though we're adults, I think it's fun to create our own allowance budget, because I think a restrictive budget will never work for anybody. You'll just reset doing your budget and you'll reset like saving, or like, you just feel restricted. You probably wouldn't like it. And for that, we have budgeted about $500. So we each have 250, so we can buy whatever we want, whatever our heart desire. And then the last one was Grub, which is for our groceries, our food related budget. And we actually budgeted $1,200 a month. I know that's a lot, but again, me and my husband, we both love to eat. So we try to like, you know, go to all the Las Vegas restaurants as much as we can if our budget allows it. So yeah, that's how like my budget breakdowns.
Yeah, 100%. And I love that. And I appreciate the mnemonic as well. We have a comment here. Somebody likes swag right here.
I know
Yeah,
it's fun. Like, like I said, like you have to make it fun, so you want to do it every single month.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And just to reiterate, swag, right, is sip,
Mm-hmm.
whip, allowance, and grub.
Yep, you got it.
And of course, for those watching, if you guys have any questions and want to be a part of the conversation, feel free to comment, and we
Mm-hmm.
will be sure to include your questions as well, and we'll work that in. But yeah, so this is fantastic, and again, I really appreciate you sharing more here. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
I will say that this is great when you're looking at some of these expenses. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I really like let's go in a little bit deeper. Obviously, where you mentioned you're trying to get into potentially in the next year or two is start dabbling in some investments, maybe some of that. But I think that's probably the only thing that we had with our previous episode that we're going to probably dive into a little bit in your net assets because you do have some of that that we're going to be
Mm-hmm.
diving into. That'll be next. Um, with
Okay.
the uh, with the allowance and your grub, right? Obviously, those are the
Mm-hmm.
ones. Again, they're some of your the they're you're not. How did you phrase it? It wasn't the dollar amount that you can actually control yourself, basically. Um,
Yeah.
those are two of your bigger ones of the swag items here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'd love to kind of understand really some of your favorite uh, favorite expenses within those that you definitely do a lot of. Again, you mentioned the boba when all that like the casual drinks are in the sip. So, but that's
Mm-hmm.
only really 3%, so you do really good with that.
Yeah.
You're definitely. But yeah, with the allowance and grub, share a little bit more on either one of those to start. Really what your goal is, like what your favorite things are within those categories.
Mm. Well, I think for my allowance, I think I would just get random stuff like you said, like I'm on TikTok, Instagram, there's a bunch of like these influencers that try to influence you to buy something. So a couple of purchases that I feel like I made, but probably not really, like I shouldn't really buy it because I don't need it. One, I bought a KitchenAid standing mixer. I don't know if you've seen those, but
No.
it's, really pretty. No? Okay, you have to Google it. But
I'll bring
anyways,
it up.
I'm not a baker. All right. So honestly, it's kind of like a pointless purchase because I'm not going to use it as much as I actually get a lot of things out of it. But because they have this like pretty colors, there's this specific color called aqua sky, And this is also a good thing about KitchenAid marketing because they have like this color like collection. So you would want to collect all of the colors. And I bought into that because there was a sale on my fair. So I got it.
Nice.
And then what is another thing that I usually buy? Oh, my nails. So this one is kind of like this one fall off, but basically my nails, I don't like to go to the nail salon because I don't like sitting for like a couple hours. But on Instagram, there's an ad for this brand called Nail Boo, which is kind of like a nail powder
Mm,
thing that you do at home. So I got into that too.
I saw that on your
And
Instagram
obviously,
story.
yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Like
Yeah,
I probably maybe do it like weekly, but we shall see. Like sometimes I just get too
yeah.
lazy. And then usually Amazon is also another big thing. Sometimes I also spend on my like pens and markers because I love to do bullet journaling. Especially now that summer is coming up. I usually would go to Walmart or Target to like hunt for those pens. Um, I think if I can speak for my husband, I think his like allowance usually would go to like trading cards. He doesn't really buy as much as before, but he would buy, Magic the Gathering. He got into this other game that I forgot the name. But yeah, that's like usually what we would use our allowance. And usually my husband, if he has any left over, he would buy stocks or put it somewhere in like his, I don't know, Robinhood or something. I don't I'm
Yeah,
not really familiar with that. Yeah,
maybe
that's about it. And also food.
food. Yeah, we'll get so I like how you spoke. We'll stick with allowance real quick. I'm gonna share. Let's I think I have up right now the KitchenAid standing mixer that you're recommending. This is a little bit of a
I
plug
don't know if
here.
I recommend it.
Recommend it per se, yeah.
Yeah, I mean if
But
you're a baker, yes, but if
this
you're
is
not, you
this is
shouldn't.
one of
Yeah.
the purchases that I think you had mentioned that you found on
Mhm.
TikTok. So I just
Mhm.
thought that that was yeah, I do know what this is. I had no idea what it was called. But you also got some support
Oh
in the
yeah.
chat from Lewis, who is featured in our first episode here. So I
Oh
appreciate
yeah. Mhm.
appreciate the support. But yeah, he says KitchenAid, Vitamix, and Dyson, and he likes the swag as well. You got a lot of comments on the swag. And I will say the pens that you buy, right? That I think
Mhm.
I've also seen in your Instagram stories that you budget really well. You have like a really cool budget, right? Like the book that you have. So I mean, technically, if you're also using that as like a business, technically that could be a business write-off maybe for
Yeah,
taxes.
see?
So I'm not sure
Yeah.
if you
Maybe one day I'll be a baker and I'll sell those cookies.
Hey, could be just quickly incorporate that, and you never know, right? You
Yeah.
never know where that goes. We got a comment, and he says, just because you don't bake yeah, just because you don't bake now doesn't mean you won't later on. Exactly, exactly, John.
Yeah, see,
Exactly.
I feel like at that time I was trying to find like a new hobby because of the pandemic. I thought I would
hmm
get into baking, so maybe I'll get into it.
yep, you might have some some early customers here in the chat here, so you never know. You never know how that can materialize. But very cool. Very cool. So, and then let's pull up your monthly spending again. So, we're speaking about baking. Let's go into your grub
Hmm.
budget, right? So your food
Hmm.
budget. So, obviously, again, 19%. This is effectively outside of your mortgage and HOA. This is your biggest
Hmm.
expense here. So, walk us
I
through this a little bit
know.
more.
So I think one of the main big thing that we do is because we live literally behind Costco. And if any of you have a Costco membership or have parents who have Costco membership, you probably know that when you go in, you probably have to spend more than $100. So I think that's why we kind of budget like our grub a bit higher because honestly, I like to go to Costco because it's really convenient. It's right there. And then Costco has a bunch of like food that is kind of like ready to make. You can just put it in the microwave or, like heat it up and it's ready. Um, but then also, like I said, my husband and I, like, I think our love language is food. I know there's like 5 love languages. I don't know if food is included in that 5. I don't think so. but it's like our love languages.
I need to take that
Is it?
exam or whatever it is. I honestly have no idea what the five love. Yeah, there are five languages of love. I think there's like touch or connect. Like then there, I
Yeah,
don't know if
like
food is one of them.
quality
Here,
time. Yeah, so
yes,
that's
is
our love
five
language.
languages of love. I will
So
Google this as well, and we'll pull that up in a second.
so our love language is food. I'm pretty sure it's not, but you can Google it. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
have it.
and like I said before, we love to eat. I think that's how we started to like kind of date. When we were dating, we love to just like we share that love for food. Like we always go out to eat. And especially like I said in Vegas, there's a bunch of like, restaurants popping up like out of nowhere and they're really good. So we want to give them a chance, support small businesses, and also feed our belly.
Yeah, no,
And
100%.
like none of us really like to cook, so
Yeah, I do tend to agree with a lot of what you just said. And just for the record, I
yeah,
pulled up the five love languages that I'm pretty sure these are the legit ones according to this random
yeah.
website from Google. But yeah, words of
Hmm.
affirmation, physical touch, receiving gifts, quality of time, and acts of service. But I would argue that food can be probably under the
All
quality
five of
time.
them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it really it can play into all of these things. You can gift food, you can spend quality time around food,
Yeah.
you can speak positive words of affirmation to your food. You have great
Hmm.
conversations. So no, so yeah, I'll pull that back out. But yeah, and when it comes to Costco, Costco's a
Hmm.
interesting dynamic, right? Because like you're buying in bulk, and you think
Hmm.
you're getting a good deal because you're getting like 70 of these things that you, if you went to like a random, again, whether it be Safeway, Publix, or Walmart, you could probably
Hmm.
buy like a third of those. But, yeah, it just, you have to make sure you can work through that as well. He said,
Yeah.
yeah, number six. Yeah, food is a sixth
A
one. That's
sixth love
a
language.
sixth love
Yeah.
language. A sixth love language. Yeah, and I mean, again, I fall into the category of I do tend to overspend with on Costco stuff, but it's just like I just don't want to. It's like an efficiency conversation there too. Like I don't want to keep going to the grocery store every week if I can just buy it
Yeah.
for the month
Hmm.
and then just put it, have it in
Yeah.
the freezer. But again, you have to be
Yeah.
able to have that mindset of like, okay, you're gonna pace yourself through all that stuff because I've had stuff expire too, which is like not a good thing too.
I
So
know.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, and of course Vegas and food eating out is kind of intense, especially because
Hmm.
you're in a market where people are flying to Vegas to spend money and you have
Hmm.
high rollers that are going to seek out like premium food experiences. And so, depending
Hmm.
on like, are there any specific restaurants that are like your favorites, but it's like like I would say like a guilty pleasure restaurant that's like, okay, let's celebrate. Is there one of those when I come to Vegas next? Is this going to be a
Mm.
spot? That's really why I'm asking
Honestly,
this. Yeah.
I know, right? Honestly, because well, I guess we can call ourselves local now because we've been here like for 2 years, but we rarely go to the strip
Mm,
because one, like the strip is for tourists, I guess. Even though we used to be one, but it's so expensive, and if you just drive like 10 minutes away from the strip, you can find so many other restaurants that are, a bit cheaper, obviously, or way cheaper and still really good. So I think one of the things that is like our guilty pleasures is all you can eat sushi places. There's a bunch of them here.
mm.
Korean barbecue places. There's a bunch of new ones popping up, like they kind of mixing Korean barbecue and like hot pot. Like I don't know if I can eat both on the same night, but there's a bunch of those as well around here. So like I think anytime we feel kind of like we're bored and we want to go somewhere, we either go to sushi or Korean barbecue. Those are like our two spots.
Yeah, I'd say really quick, mixing Korean barbecue and hot pot is actually brilliant.
It is,
Like
but I mean, it's too much, don't you think?
it's so much, but it's the same concept. Just one is just you're grilling it, the other one is you're just boiling it, right? So in theory, it's just like it's very similar. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's just like to be able to have the option is actually really kind of cool, and I'm very envious of
I
that option. It's very
Well,
cool.
whenever you stop by to Vegas, you should check it out. There's a
You'll
couple
be
places there.
yeah, you'll be one of the first people I'll be asking for recommendations of like
Yeah.
specifically that spot. We have a comment from John. Mom and pop restaurants are normally the best, and that is 100%
Oh
100%
yeah,
true.
a bunch of the Korean barbecues that we go to are like one of those mom and pop kind of like rundown looking restaurants from outside, where the inside is really good. And the service is also really good because they care about us.
I'll say that Vegas is also notorious for like stuff that looks kind of sketchy on the outside, but is really cool on the inside.
Yeah.
I've definitely, and there are also a whole bunch of things in Vegas that are like secret that you don't like aren't advertised, people don't talk about it, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
there aren't any signs for a place to eat or what have you, and it's just you have to kind of
Mm-hmm.
know about it. And one of my favorites that isn't a so secret of the strip at least is there's like a, and we'll say this and move on, but there's a pizza spot. I think it's in the Cosmopolitan, and I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty like
I
confident
forgot. I know where it is.
I'm pretty sure it's in the Cosmo, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
down this unassuming hall. And if the door is closed to the pizza spot, you can't even see it. It looks like a
Mm-hmm.
service entrance, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's a full-on pizza. Like you'll walk down this random floor of the Cosmo, and you're just like, I smell some pizza. Like, where is this pizza coming from? And then it's just like this random
Yeah.
hallway.
I think I know why it's a secret because like usually if you're like off age, you go out and then pizza is like the one food that you really want to like eat,
Yeah,
and then it's a secret pizza because you kind of like forget where it is.
yeah. You indul Oh, that's
But
funny. That's funny. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I've been there too, like once or twice, before when we used to live in California. But I,
Yeah.
I know where it is, and I'm pretty sure you're right. I think it's in the Cosmo.
I think it's in the Cosmo. I think it's in the Cosmo. But
Hmm.
yeah, so thanks for indulging me with that food experience in Vegas. I just, as you can tell, I miss Vegas. I used to go every year for conferences and stuff. So thanks
Yeah.
COVID, right? Um, but so I also want to touch on the savings and really
Hmm.
talk about this in terms of I assume, like, how do you manage your savings, right? Is it all just into a high yield savings account, or is it into other accounts? Like, when you say savings, what does that actually mean to you?
Hmm. Well, right now our savings is just basically in like a high yield savings account, and also just like our regular savings account, like the one that is joined to our regular checking account. But that's about it. I don't really want to make it complicated because like what we're focusing on now is our emergency fund. So it's not really the money that we want to invest and grow, it's for our emergencies. So anytime we have one, I want to make sure I'll be able to pull it out, quickly. But yeah, that's it.
And
Nothing really complicated. I don't want to complicate,
yeah,
it's just savings.
I appreciate, yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I'm sure everybody, yeah. I mean, it's really again because I think so many people are somewhat intimidated or don't think that budgeting is too much work. Like again, to your point, like it doesn't have to be complicated, right? You
Yeah.
just this is it, and this is what you're doing. With the
Hmm.
emergency fund, is that all being stored in a high yield savings account slash checking, joint checking?
Hmm. Yeah, basically, well, I guess with savings, I also want to kind of uh do like a quick note. Usually with savings, I think it's super smart to do something automatic. So what we do, usually we would put about 10% of our like paycheck directly into like our savings account. So we don't even see it every single paycheck.
Mm,
And we do that for like one of our regular savings account. And I rarely check that because it's automatic. I decided and forget it. And because I do it that way, like every few months when I checked it, I would be like, oh, surprise money there. So I think that's one thing. If you want to build your savings quickly, make sure you set up a direct deposit for your paycheck directly into savings. So it doesn't even go to your checking account and you forget about it, but it's there. And the other thing that we are trying to do is just kind of like pulling some of those to our high yield savings account, even though we're not trying to grow it, but because it's a high yield savings account, it pays like the interest is a bit higher than just the 0.001% or something.
Yeah, exactly. I think
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the average, which is very interesting, right? Like the average, if you just keep your money in a standard checking account, I don't think that there's almost zero actual interest you gain from that. It's like
I think
zero
like a
one
penny.
point zero one or zero zero
Oh
one
yeah.
percent. And then with
Mm-hmm.
these high yield savings accounts, right? I think now they're the highest high yield savings accounts you can get, I think are zero point 0.4 to 0.5% APY,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
It used to
then
be like almost point 0.9.
yeah, I think
With
in 2018 or 19, I think there actually were like close to 2%, like like
wow.
2 point
Mm-hmm.
something. Like I know, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, and I think again, I think that the interest rates were a lot higher, like with the Fed and whatnot
Mm-hmm.
back then, and so banks were incentivized to increase their interest rates. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
now it's just you're seeing record low after record low, and it's just you're getting again like zero point 0.4 and zero point 0.5, and previously it was I think a zero point 0.9 at some point I'm sure. Um, but yeah, definitely I remember back a couple
Mm-hmm.
years ago it was like 2%, and I was like, whoa, this is really
Oh
it's
yeah.
intense. Um, but yeah, very cool. And before we go and talk more about your the net assets, is there something else that you wanted to call out here with with your monthly budget and monthly spending?
Actually, okay. I remember this. I think I was just thinking about it a couple days ago. Um, Usually with like my monthly setup, like the way you showed it here, when I need to maybe buy something one off, I would usually cut up my allowance or even sometimes grab just so I have more space in the budget to buy something that is more of a priority. But now because I have an emergency fund and I have like, quite a big chunk of money in savings, I don't even have to do that anymore because I can just grab it from my emergency fund.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like, sometimes people think that they need to, try and be super restrictive. But then if you have like another kind of like, when you work, like your budget is like your 9 to 5, but your saving is your side hustle. So like if your 9 to 5 job doesn't like, it's like, you need to grab some other money from somewhere else. Like your saving is like your side hustle. So like your extra money. Sometimes
Yeah.
you forget it, like I do too, but yeah, that's another point that I want to bring up. Like if you used to maybe cut off some of your allowance or your eating out budget, but if you have like a savings account, then you don't have to do that. You can just grab it from your savings.
Right. Totally. I mean, it's definitely a cool mindset shift to have. Like, you feel comfortable. Hey, like I have this things here if I need to go. I know Lewis from episode one said that he budgets in every year. He's like, I'm gonna put this money aside for like Christmas presents and whatnot. But
Oh
um,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think,
Mm-hmm.
but again, if there are other things in the middle of the year, let's just say, again, you guys own a home, right? Like if something goes wrong or something, you need to fix something, call a plumber or whatnot. I'm sure those are like the one-off
Mm-hmm.
times that
Yeah.
you're probably gonna have to pull from the savings, right? That emergency budget's an emergency budget for a reason, right? It's called that for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I think the one other thing I do want to mention is with the mortgage and HOA. It's an interesting conversation here, and I know we're gonna go into your net assets in a second.
Mm-hmm.
With the mortgage and HOA, what's your perspective on HOAs in particular? I'll start with, and then we'll go into really the mortgage split. And I assume, and yeah, I'll start with HOAs first, and then I'll ask more questions in a second.
I mean, with HOA, like thankfully in Vegas, it's not as much. It's like $74. But I know my parents have like a property, like a condo in LA, and that HOA is like close to $400.
Wow.
So it's not too bad, but I guess I understand like because I mean we don't really have a choice. Like a bunch of the houses in Vegas is in an HOA community where it's just like whether you want to pay kind of like a higher HOA or not, you know?
Is HOA the norm in Vegas?
Yeah, it's pretty much a normal. I think when we were looking, to buy a house, I think most of them are in an HOA. And even if, like I think when you think about HOA, you think about like gated community or like a pool or anything like that. But even like the houses around here that looks like it's just, being built and like they have different style, it still has an HOA. So I think it's a norm. Like I don't think we were able to find a house that is just, like a standalone and not having an HOA.
Have you ever run into issues or conversations with the HOA? And I'll preface that with I was on a work call today, and we were
Mm-hmm.
talking about weekend plans, and one of my coworkers was like, "Well, I have to pull some weeds because my HOA told me that we we have too
Yeah.
many weeds, and so she joked that she had kids that she was gonna hire to help pull the weeds
Oh
with her.
yeah.
But I was just like, man, like having an HOA. I mean, yeah, sure, you don't necessarily want weeds because it just visually
Mm-hmm.
doesn't look that great. But um,
Yeah.
yeah, have you ever run into any HOA issues yet in your time that you've been living there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep. And I feel
okay.
like, yeah, I feel like what your coworker is experiencing, it's the same like with everyone who's living in an HOA. Because one of the like what is it called? Like letters of, I forgot what they call, but basically they sent us a letter saying that, hey, your bushes need some like trimming because it looks wild. And we've had a couple of them. And thankfully, like with our HOA here, they give us like a couple weeks before they, fine us. So we just have to do it. I guess it's one of the responsibilities that you have to do if you own a house. And even if your house is not like in an HOA community, I think it's still good to like, take care of your lawn.
Right.
Yeah.
And then have there like at the same time, obviously I'm coming from a probably more negative perspective on HOAs from from my experiences and conversations, but
Yeah.
uh I mean, what I assume you're paying into an HOA, which ideally is there to help your quality, like your neighborhood and your quality of life living in that community.
Hmm.
Have
Hmm.
you seen any noticeable improvements in some of the initiatives that they're taking on too, or is that pretty much null? And like, my perspective is more right
Mm,
than not. They force their neighbors to also
yeah.
take care of their lawns, I guess, right? But yeah, what else is there?
I don't know. I mean, I know like, when we moved in here, they gave us like a rule book or whatever. And like I think one of the other biggest thing that, I mean, honestly, I don't really care about it, but I see that people are parking like in front of their own garage when you're not supposed to, and nobody really like find them or anything. I don't know if other neighbors report that specific neighbor, I mean, I don't, but I mean, I'm a kind of like a rule follower, so like, just follow the rule. Like, I mean, again, to me, it doesn't matter. It's your car. If you want to get fined and keep parking in front of your garage,
Yeah.
but I don't really see too much improvement. I mean, I've only been here for 2 years. Well, no, 2 years, no, a year ish. So I don't really see anything new that like catches my eyes. Um, but yeah, I know, like,
Yeah.
I understand like some of people's like experience with HOA are like super negative, but so far so good. I don't have a bad experience yet, but maybe if you ask me in a couple of years, I can tell
Yeah.
you a bunch.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know.
I think it's the people who are on the HOA boards that just want to feel like they have the power to tell somebody to do something and, see something done.
Hmm.
Interesting dynamic, really. Um,
Yeah.
and with the mortgage, typically with the mortgage, if people in real estate, it's the PITI, it's principal, interest, PIT taxes and insurance. And
Mm-hmm.
so with that, the insurance part is if you put down less than 20%, and then taxes are taxes on the property and the estate.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the principal, which is paying down, and the interest, which is just like the loan itself. The principal is
Mm-hmm.
paying down the loan, and the interest is obviously paying the bank the interest that they uh, have loaned out, right? So with
Mm-hmm.
you, what are your conversations with that? Like how do you view your mortgage pay down, your principal pay down, and the interest associated with that? And with that, when I say the insurance part of that, is that grouped into your 3%, or is that a part of do you also group that into your either mortgage part of the pie chart here?
Mm-hmm. Well, basically, the mortgage that I'm including in that percentage is it includes the principal, the interest, the tax, and the insurance. And you know what? It's so funny. Like, I never really looked into like the breakdown of my mortgage payment, but I recently did maybe sometime like last year, and it's crazy how much interest we pay every single month. Like it's almost double than like what we're paying on the principal.
Hmm.
And that is like, that's why I told my husband, like, hey, if we have extra money, like maybe next year after we fully fund our emergency fund, we should try and at least put like a couple $100 more towards the principal every single month. Because like we're losing money technically because we're paying off the interest.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's included there. And I don't know if I talked to you about this before, but like we're also trying to refinance our mortgage, trying to take advantage of the lower interest rate.
Yep.
Um,
We didn't
and
talk
I don't
about
think
that, but
we,
yeah.
oh, we didn't? Oh, okay,
No.
maybe it's someone else.
Yeah, happy to
But yeah,
talk
that's
about
what we're
that.
trying to do.
So with
Yeah, that's
that,
what
I
we're trying to do.
I would love to
Oh,
talk
go ahead,
about
sorry.
that. So 2 years ago, obviously interest rates were a lot like maybe a percent or two higher than they are
Mm-hmm.
now, which is a dramatic
Mm-hmm.
difference, especially when you're talking about a loan that could be hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? And
Yes.
so,
Mm-hmm.
and because you're definitely again like 2 years into the loan, like the interest pay down is going to be substantially higher than the principal, as you mentioned. Are you
Mm-hmm.
open to talking about the rate that you got and the rates that you're trying to negotiate, or and how is that going? What's that
Mm-hmm.
process like?
Well, I think when we bought the house, our rate was at 3.9, like 3.9, like basically 4%. I think they're just making it 3.9 to make it seem like it's 3%, but it's not. And I feel like my husband's dad, my father-in-law has been telling us to, go refinance your loan, but I was just lazy about it and I didn't really want to talk to like a lender. But I guess I should have done it because we were probably able to cut it down to like half. Like I talked to one of my coworkers, he was able to get his rate like way down, like really close to two. And what we're getting now, because we just recently tried to refinance, was like 2.875, which only makes like a difference of $100 every single month in mortgage payment. But I guess over time, if we do go with that rate, I mean with that interest rate, we would save about $42,000 in interest payment over the 30 years, loan.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
$100 every month is $100 every month, I think that,
mm-hmm,
but then with that, are you only talking, how many lenders are you talking with? I guess is a good question. And
mm-hmm.
yeah, I'll start with that.
We talked to two. I tried to reach out to like our current lender, but I don't know, like they were, I guess maybe there's a lot of people who are like trying to refinance, so they haven't really got back to me. But
Interesting.
I talked to two, yeah, and then the one that I actually contacted first gave us the best option, I think. So I think that's where we're gonna go. That's where we're gonna go for our next, for our refinancing.
Have you ever tried like having this offer with this initial buyer, or this initial
Mm-hmm.
lender? Have you shared that I guess it's a loan estimate. I'm not sure how refinances specifically
Mm-hmm.
would be if it's like a loan estimate. Have you shared that loan estimate with the other competing lender, or have you, yeah, how's that? Have you tried getting them to go against each other? Is my question.
Um, Kinda, but I mean, the second lender was just kind of like letting us go. Like, I think at first he was really adamant, like he would call me, and left a voicemail. But then after I told them that, oh, this is what we get from this other lender, I don't think he could match that. So
Hmm.
I never got a call back. So okay.
Interesting, interesting. Yeah, I think first off, 2.8% is fantastic right now. I think that's a
Mm-hmm.
huge, and obviously a full percent, 1.1% better than what you were getting before, where it's like
Yeah.
that like a full point is great. And are you
Mm-hmm.
paying, talking about points, are you paying any
Mm-hmm.
of the like lender credits or points on like the different type of point, to
Mm-hmm.
actually get that rate lower? Do you know what that like if you're paying more for it to typically forgot how points are calculated, but typically it's like a percentage of the actual loan if you're actually be able to pay that up in
Mm-hmm.
cash as a point. Um,
Yeah, I think that 2.875 rate, I think we do have to buy points, but then somehow like the way they set up like the loan, they would include that or it's being absorbed or whatever in the mortgage monthly payment.
Interesting.
So, it's not too bad.
Cool, especially if you're able to, I guess, amortize that out too. That could be cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
fascinating. Fascinating. Very cool. again, if anybody who's watching does want to participate or have any other questions, feel free to pop it in the chat. I know we have some awesome people here who've already been commenting. Really appreciate that, John Lewis and Tim. So feel free to keep the comments coming. And again, if anybody has any questions, feel free to pop them over. Before we transition to your net assets, is there anything else you wanted to talk about here?
No, I think we talk about it a lot.
Yeah, it was great. Really
Yeah.
fantastic.
Mhm.
Awesome. Well, then let's go and talk about the net assets here. So here what we were showing, and I assume this is a little bit small for you as well if you couldn't see it before. So real estate, as far as net assets, right? So net assets are basically, for explaining for everybody, just to make sure we're on the same page here. Net assets are your total assets minus any liabilities or loans, effectively, right? Any debts that you have, and that's effectively what you're left
Mhm.
with. So here you
Mhm.
have, I'll walk it through just in case, just to be safe. So real estate obviously is going to be a huge percentage here, especially, where we're at right now. 56.4% of your net worth is in real estate, or net assets, I should say, and then 27.7% is in a retirement account, and
Mhm.
7.4% is your car. 2.6% is savings. 2.4% is your checkings. 1.5% is in stocks. 1.3% is in HSAs, which I love and we'll talk more about. 0.6% is crypto, is exciting, and then 0.1%, so a tenth of a percent, is in precious metals, which is a really interesting, asset class to be in as well. You
Yeah.
definitely have, a little taste of a couple different asset classes here. But I'll start,
Mhm.
I'll let you start first, and how would you like to walk us through this one?
I don't know. We can talk about precious metal.
Yeah, let's talk about the 0.1%, the smallest
And
asset class you have here. We'll start with that. I'm down for that too, because I don't really know. This is probably one of the few like the asset classes I know very little about, generally speaking, and I would love to hear your perspective and how what you guys are doing with this space.
well, honestly, I don't know. I'm not an expert at this, and I feel like most of the investment that we have, it's because my husband does it, and obviously when we're married, it's like also mine too. So I think a few months ago, maybe last year, he learned about silver, and I'm pretty sure like if you have like old school parents, they always like, I don't know about your parents, but my mom would tell me like, hey, you guys should buy like a block of gold. And I was like, why? But she was saying that gold can, I guess, like the value is like the value lasts longer or something like that. I don't know, but she always wants us to buy like a block of gold. And I guess my husband got into silver coins, so he started buying some of that last year, and we just kind of keep it. And just when you actually asked me to calculate our net worth or net assets, I never really done it before, and I think it's a good thing for people to know how much their net worth or their net assets are. And that's when we kind of like just Google how much our silver coins worth, and that's how we came about to that 0.1% of precious metal.
Very cool. And so that your 0.1% of precious metal is that the silver coins? So did you guys actually buy a block of gold too?
No, we
Okay,
didn't.
I was
I
about
don't
to say.
even know where to buy a block of gold. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know what my mom was talking about, but
I do have a
maybe we'll
friend.
have to Google it.
I do have a friend who is very into metals and whatnot, and I could probably, if you're interested in buying a block of gold, I'm sure he probably knows
Oh
where.
my gosh.
What I've seen as well on the internet was just buying a piece of gold or whatever, or a block of gold, or a
Mm-hmm.
percentage of a block of gold, but like
Mm-hmm.
you're not actually going to receive it physically. It's just kind of
Mm-hmm.
kept in a place that has it. And for me, it's just like, no, if I'm gonna buy a metal, like meant personally, it's
I
just like
want
I
it
kind of
in
want,
my hands.
I wanna hold this gold and be like, this is
Yeah.
my gold, like
Yeah.
with like two chain and like, my,
Yeah.
but no, I think it's it's fascinating. And then with the silver, I think they're called silver bullions or something like that. Silver coin, yeah.
I
And
don't know.
yeah, did you? I assume so. It was just a single purchase. It wasn't like a multi-purchase kind of situation here. It was just like a single purchase point. It's not like you're dollar cost averaging into metals here. It was just like a single point in
Yeah.
time where you made one purchase. Did you
Mhm.
another side question again, if your husband purchased and you don't really know, it's fine.
Mhm.
In the coin, was it a customized kind of coin? Was it like a special edition kind of silver thing? And the reason I ask is like they're cool, like engravings
Mhm.
and different, like I don't know, there was like a Star Wars one, or you could get like a president face
Oh,
on it, or there are like a whole bunch of different things that you could probably the collectible coins. But yeah, I'm not
I
sure.
didn't know that, but I don't think he got that personalized one. No.
Yeah,
I
it's
wanna I wanna tell him to look into it now.
totally look into that. Yeah, he's we have a new comment here. You left out your fur babies.
Oh, it's actually our cousin.
Oh,
Hello,
how you doing,
Kathy.
cousin? So that's funny. I guess that would probably go into. I'm not sure if we would call pets assets that you would, but I would I mean, unless you have a different perspective on that, maybe that would
I
go
don't
into
know. I don't wanna like when you talk
objectify
about like
things.
yeah, I
Yeah.
don't wanna sell my cat to like pay off my debt. It's
But
it's priceless.
yeah, it might be under monthly spending maybe that would go on. It's a, she says it's a liability. That's funny.
No, it
Um,
is though. It's true. It's
yeah,
true.
yeah,
We
that is
just
really true.
oh my gosh, you know what? We just spent like I don't know, $500 on one of those little robot. Have you ever heard of that?
Honestly,
It's like a
I'm not a cat person, and I definitely
oh,
am not
okay.
in the market for a dog anytime soon either. But I can imagine. Is it like a Roomba but for cat litter?
Yeah, basically it's instead of
Mm.
like you scooping the litter every day, like twice a day, it just rotates for you and it will collect like the waste, I guess, on the bottom, so you don't have to do it physically yourself. It's a
Mm.
lot of money for a cat.
Yeah, it's very cool, very bougie of just like automated cat litter picker upper.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean it's basically based on just like us being lazy to scoop her litter.
yeah,
So
but no, that I mean, or just clean it. I know it's a whole thing to just clean a litter box. It's just intense.
hmm
Um, yeah, I like pets as long as they're other people's pets. It's great.
oh yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I'm
I
very happy with other
understand that.
people's pets. So just the responsibility is not my thing right now. I'm not trying to
hmm
have too many of them at the moment, personally. But
hmm
it's not me we're talking to here. So yeah, definitely a liability. As your cousin, I'm sure has a pretty strong opinion apparently with your fur babies. Um, and so, but yeah, we spoke about some precious metals here, and again, very interesting situation with silver and different types of coins and metals there. Um,
hmm
where do you want to go next? There's crypto, stocks, HSA, saving, checking we already covered, car, retirement, and
hmm
your real estate.
I don't know. Where do you
Yeah, how
wanna?
about since we'll work our way up to real estate because I love talking about real
Okay.
estate and I will, keep that near the end for me to be excited about as
hmm
well. But with crypto being a, zero point 0.6 percent of your net assets, I assume you've done some dabbling there. And it's a really interesting conversation because my friend who I mentioned loves metals also like hates crypto a lot. So it's
Oh,
definitely like
really?
a yeah. Yeah. So it's like
Interesting.
he's very hesitant about that, but he is like all in on precious metals. And so it's
hmm
like, tell me more about your like your thoughts on crypto and what you have currently.
Well, like I said, like with investing, it's mostly like my husband, but I know with crypto, I'm pretty sure he used to mine it. Is that like
Oh,
the
cool.
lingo?
No, that's
Yeah, so he
legal.
used to okay.
Yeah, it's totally
I
okay
don't
to say
I don't
that
really
out
know the
loud.
lingo. Like
Yeah.
I think like he mines those crypto coins or currencies. But I know he spent like some money investing in Bitcoin. I think it was really big like a few years ago. I think he get to buy into it maybe only like a couple $100, not
Wow.
that much. Yeah. And I think when Dogecoin was like a thing, he was I think it's still a thing
It's still
now,
very
right?
all these coins are still very much a thing right now in my world. I talk about it
Okay,
quite
see,
often.
okay, maybe you can talk more about that, but I think Dogecoin is one of the things that he got into, and I think his is it mining also? Like, can you mine it?
So I don't
Is that
mining is
right?
a whole other so mining. I used to mine, and when you mine, you
Mhm.
need to have a pretty decent computer that is able to process equations on a blockchain, basically like a ledger in the internet
Mhm.
space.
Mhm.
And basically, if you're, you basically have a computer that is constantly churning like on and processing information.
Yep, we
Uh,
have that in the office.
Nice. So that's probably what he used to mine. And basically
Mhm.
all that's doing is if I were to buy crypto, like let's just say you're trying to sell me some Bitcoin, I wanted to buy it,
Mhm.
there needs to be a verification or validation process of making sure that this transaction between both you and I had gone through, and that
Mhm.
verification slash validation process happens on like by on the blockchain, which is effectively made up of a whole bunch of individual people like your husband and myself who would have our
Mhm.
computers on and running to effectively give a thumbs up that yes, this transaction happened, and
Mm.
here now it's for everybody to see on the internet, um, in the blockchain space spheres. And but that's a very hopefully not too wrong description of what mining is. It's just basically you have your computer on processing information to validate transactions that other people are buying and selling cryptocurrencies on. Um,
Mm.
and there are probably other ways that it can be used. I'm not an expert too much into that, but um, you get a percentage just like PayPal gets a percentage when, or credit card fees as an example, when you buy and sell stuff. We spoke about credit
Mhm.
cards at the beginning. They take, credit card companies take a percentage of the sale to
Mhm.
make the transaction. You as the miner are getting paid to verify the transaction that it went through. And so that then you get paid in a cryptocurrency as well. And
Mm.
therefore you get that percentage of that value. Um, and if hopefully I've explained that okay. I'm also again not necessarily the expert per se on that, although I did do it for a little bit. But yeah, I mean a lot of my crypto is very much because I mined, and really the only expense there is your electricity bill and hopefully your
Yeah.
hardware. Yeah, and hopefully your hardware was able to keep up and wasn't able to get burnt out or broke. But it sounds like it's still working fine. Um,
Yeah, I hear
so,
it all the time
oh, so
when I
he's
work
still
from
mining.
home.
So he's still
I
mining.
I think so. I don't really
If it's
understand
loud,
it, but yeah.
if it's
Yeah,
loud,
yeah.
he's got fans going on. It's probably hot. When you walk in that
Mhm.
room, maybe. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's definitely
Mhm.
still cranking away.
Mhm.
That's
There you
awesome that
go.
you guys are mining then, because they get just keep an eye on your electricity bill and see if it's worth it, I guess. Um, but yeah,
So far, it's
cryptocurrencies.
okay.
Your husband's gonna come back and be like, "Why did you say that
I
to
know.
me?"
Hopefully, he's not really listening.
So yeah, so that's exciting, and I assume, do you know what type of coins or cryptocurrency you have, or is that very much like, out of sight, out of mind for
It's
you?
yeah. It's
Yeah,
I don't know.
totally good, totally good. Then we'll work our way down with HSAs. So first off, wow, HSA, incredible thing to be a part of in my mind and pay into.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
tell me more about it from your perspective, and maybe if you want to like give them a little bit of background of how you opened yours, I assume, and
Mhm.
and give us more information about HSAs in general.
Well, I think HSA is mostly from, well, the way I started is from my employer. So when I started like my first big girl full-time job, like they offer that, like they, like, we would contribute some and then they would give us like, I think $1,000 at the time. So I
Nice.
was like, free money? Yeah, why not? Right. And I guess in the beginning, I wasn't really understanding like what it is for, but now I kind of get it. Like, obviously, we're still young, we don't really have a lot of, I don't know, I assume like because we're younger, we don't have a lot of complications. Um, but I think it's still a good thing to have because it's still your money. Even if like your employer is able to contribute, like even after you leave the company, I'm pretty sure you get to bring that money with you, right? And you can use it for, other type of health benefits, like if you go get your eyes checked or if you have to pay for a copay for your doctor, you can use that money as well. And even if you don't use it up, you can still bring it with you until like you're older and you have to go back in and out of the hospital or something.
Yep, exactly. And when you said complications, like medical complications, right, with different major
Yeah.
bills or whatnot, and the way
Mm-hmm.
that I see HSAs is like an amazing tax advantage as well, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's pre-tax, it's post-tax.
It is It's pre-tax.
pre-tax
I'm
pre-tax
pretty
dollars
sure.
that grow tax-free, and
Mhm.
you can also use it for like again like medical usages, and
Mhm.
without being taxed, right? And so in a state like
Yeah.
California, right, it's actually
Mhm.
amazing because then again if I have any like yeah, I had a hospital visit, right? And then that could then be paid for by the HSA, right? Or go to
Mhm.
different things. And I think after
Yeah.
65, you can actually use it for a little bit more uh, different types of
Under
expenses.
medical. Oh, okay. Yeah, I
Exactly.
haven't really looked into that.
And HSAs, you can invest your HSAs in your HSA account and actually have it grow with different stocks. And like, it doesn't
Mm.
have to sit as cash in your HSA account. You can also invest that tax free. And
I didn't know
so,
that. See, I'm learning.
yeah, yes, you can
I need to look into
100%,
that.
100%. Yeah, so that could be, as you're starting to dabble more with investments, a tax-free way to to mess around with some
Make money.
potential investment
Mhm.
opportunities. Um,
Mm.
yeah, but so yes, that's HSAs are fantastic. Especially if you're
Yeah.
able to continue to contribute. They typically are employer sponsored.
Mhm.
I don't know if you can do one as an individual, but I do. Yeah, I think it's one of the best things
Yeah.
to do, is put money into an HSA and invest it specifically as well.
Mhm.
Speaking about investments, obviously stocks is 1.5% here. Um, do you want to talk more about that
See,
at all?
again, that's like my husband's
Yeah,
stuff.
totally.
Um, yeah, he's just been dabbling into like, I mean, for me, it's random stocks, but I'm sure he's able to like research them.
Yeah.
But I don't really know. Like, I actually meant to ask him like what is his favorite stocks, but I didn't get to. But like, I know he sometimes invested in like Apple. I heard him talk about that. Um, and I think he invested in like this one random company, and he's able to, I don't know, he's able to
Yeah.
sell it or something like that.
Oh,
It's like
good.
foreign language to me.
We'll get him on another episode. It's gonna be a whole other conversation.
You should. I can ask him if you
Yeah.
want to. That'd be
We'll
fun.
we'll, we'll have a part two to this conversation. Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Hmm.
That'd be fantastic. And then we have your checkings and savings, which are pretty close. But yeah, I mean, it's for sure. I don't think there's really much to necessarily talk about unless you want to talk about your checking and savings account, any
Uh,
potential recommended bank accounts that you might have, or experiences with some that you might recommend over others. That might be
mm,
the only major thing to discuss here.
I think, I mean, I've been using Wells Fargo for a long time, and I think it's because one of my friends actually used to work for Wells Fargo, and I remember I got a bunch of perks, like I don't have any monthly fee or anything like that. But I think like if one thing that I feel like people need to know is definitely utilize high yield savings account. I didn't really know about that until like one of my friends was telling me. She was saying that she's been keeping money in there for 3 years, never touched it, and it keeps growing. And I think it's just an amazing thing. Like even if you contribute like I don't know $10 a week or something, just let it sit there and let it grow. And I just never really realized that it's really good benefit.
Yeah.
And it's most of them are free. I don't think they charge you only monthly fee like regular bank accounts do.
Yep, 100%. And again, I love high yield savings accounts as we spoke about earlier.
Hmm.
I think you recommended you said Wells Fargo, and I'm not sure what their savings rate specifically is. Um,
No, for my high yield savings account, I use American Express.
nice.
They actually have their own personal, what's it called, American Express personal savings or something.
Yeah, I
But
think
I
that's
think
what
there's
it's
a
called. I
bunch of
think that's what it's
other
called.
ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. I love Wealthfront is my little plug there.
Hmm.
And like that's what I always recommend. And I think Wealthfront is just where I trust them a lot. They're one of
Hmm.
the people when I first started getting into high yield savings accounts that they were like a 2% plus right range where
Oh,
that
wow.
was
Yeah,
like
that's really good.
2017, 18 maybe. I don't think it was definitely around that 2018 time, but obviously
Hmm.
now all the interest rates are so low that it's almost indifferent. But yeah, I'd also say Wealthfront has a something that I would recommend as well is Wealthfront has a cash account where I use
Hmm.
it kind of as a checking, and it's actually an interest-bearing checking account effectively. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, I put some direct deposit into that, and
Hmm.
that's able to gain some interest too. Um,
What is it called again? Wealthfront?
Wealthfront, yeah. I
Oh,
have
okay. I'm
links,
gonna
affiliate
check it
links
out.
in the description here, but
Oh, cool. Okay, I'm gonna check it out.
yeah, feel free.
Okay,
I
that's
love
cool.
it, and I have friends who swear by them, and by peer
Mm-hmm.
pressure, I signed up years ago. I tried them and
Uh-huh.
Betterment, and I like both, but I think with the cash account with Wealthfront, that's again, it's an interest-bearing checking account that I do appreciate a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's definitely very cool. Um, and we can definitely talk more about that if you'd like. But I'd say moving on though, car.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to talk too much about like what cars are interesting discussions because when you drive them off the lot, it's said like they depreciate in value quite substantially. But there are also a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people who I know, especially now, are talking about how some cars, like some people collect cars, obviously, which is interesting of thing to collect, but people can buy
Mm-hmm.
like some cars actually can increase in value. Like one of my friends has a Chevy Volt that because of the like as gas prices increase, so does the value of his Chevy Volt, and he's just like I
Hmm.
was he bought it. It was a older like 2013, and then he bought it 3 4 years later, and when gas prices were still pretty low relative to where they are now again. And now the gas prices went up, so he was like, "Dude, I can probably just turn around and sell this and actually make my money back and then some," which is interesting. Um, but
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, is there anything specific you want to call it with your car
Well, I
asset
think,
class here?
well, with cars, I'm not really a big car person. I don't really care what I drive.
Yeah.
But what interesting about cars, like when you talk about like assets and liabilities, your car when like you first purchase it and you still like pay monthly for it, it could be your liabilities, obviously, because you still owe that. But once you paid it off, you can actually move it over to your asset, so it becomes your asset. So I guess I'm just happy that we both don't really care too much about cars. We paid off
Hmm.
our cars, I think, back in 2019. Well,
Awesome.
my car was newer, but my husband's car, I think he paid it off a long time ago. But we don't have any monthly payment for cars. um yeah,
How long have you guys had your cars?
I think his is a 2010 Honda Civic,
Nice.
and then I have a 2014 Scion XD.
Nice. Yeah, is that one of the box ones?
It's the, yeah, kind of, but it's the smaller version.
It's
The
it's
box one is the XB.
gotcha, gotcha. It's the
Hmm.
less boxy box one.
Yeah, like the
It's
girly boxy car.
sounds good. Yeah, no, I'm a huge fan of that. You know, cars can be. It's keeping up with the Joneses, right? Like I want really nice cars and I can impress all my friends. And I
Yeah.
think
Hmm.
it's just so interesting. The last time I was in Florida, because that's where I have a family, went to
Hmm.
like South Beach in Miami, and it's crazy how like there's like a huge flex culture down there of just like driving around in so many luxury vehicles, but it's also, you know, not everybody there owns their vehicles either. And
Oh
so
yeah,
it's just like they'll rent
I'm
them
sure.
out for the day just to have it to drive down, South Beach in A1A.
I mean, you don't have to go all the way to Florida. You can do it in
And
Vegas
in the
too.
strip, yeah, you just try. Yeah, exactly,
Exactly. Just rent it for the
exactly.
day.
Yeah, for sure. That's exactly. I assume you probably see that all the time, all the time.
I Yeah, I noticed there's a lot of, well, I mean, maybe like two or three Ferraris in the freeway here in Vegas, but a lot of people have Tesla here.
Hmm.
A lot of them. And I think there's a Tesla headquarters somewhere here in Vegas.
Interesting. Yeah, they have some
Hmm.
office spaces and whatnot. I didn't know that, but I mean,
Yeah.
Elon's Elon. He probably wants to just be there, just to be there and have fun, and I don't doubt him.
Make some money.
Yeah,
I don't know.
exactly. Make some gambles. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, and then um, yeah, speaking of something you don't want to gamble with is retirement, and 27.7%. That's pretty solid to have such like a solid hefty chunk of that, of your assets being in retirement.
Hmm. I think again, like with retirement, we started with our 401k, employer sponsored. And I think at the time when we were paying off our debt, if you ever listen to like Dave Ramsey, he basically said that, when you are paying off your debt, you want to throw anything that you have into your debt. So at the time I stopped like contributing to my 401k, but my husband still keeps going. So, he was able to actually build up quite a big, chunk of his 401k compared to mine at least. And again, I think even though we're still, young or whatever, like I think it's good to think about retirement because I feel like it's gonna be here in no time. I want to say, like if you talk to your parents, like they always say, it's time flies.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you work full time, you probably, I don't know, like you don't really feel that time has gone by for, so long. And again, it's one of those set it and forget it. Just contribute like what, 3%, 4% if you want. You can put it up higher, but as long as you set something up automatically, that's what I love about, a bunch of this money stuff. You just don't have to remember it. Just set it and forget it and let it grow
Yeah.
on its own.
Yeah, love that. Love that. Exactly. I mean, it's just making sure that you're consistent with that. But I think you had a smart decision. I mean, you have to have a conversation with yourself of, I have all this debt here, with
Hmm.
paying out high interest rates on that debt versus putting into retirement, at a younger
Hmm.
age, like what's going to be the best avenue for your dollar, right? And I think
Hmm.
Dave Ramsey and your conversation or your conversation with Dave Ramsey. No, your
That'd be
your
cool, but
yeah, one day. Um, yeah, I think that the IQ was super right. I think that you made a strong decision, and then hopefully you've probably experienced that being paid off. Um, but at the same time,
Mhm.
it is crazy to think that, you know, typically people retire in their 60s at some point as like
Mhm.
average. And it's like, yeah, like we're getting close. Like it's just too, it's weird to think about how kind of close people are, how like it is, you know, it's just fascinating. Like I felt like I was just in high school yesterday, and
Exactly. I don't feel like I'm 30, I feel like I'm still 15.
yeah, yeah,
But
exactly, exactly, exactly. And so, but that's great. With your retirement account, do you customize how that account is invested? Have you, I assume you're in at least the target date account is typically a standard. Um, and then if you have you messed around with that, or is that just like, no, you just kind of set it and forget it to your point? And
yeah, I just kind of set it and forget it. But I think it's still, I think it's wise to look into it, just to double check.
mhm,
Which again, I'm not really like an expert at it. I really want to learn more because I know that they're taking some of my paycheck and move it there, but then what they do with that money, I don't know about it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's usually more often than not, depending on like where company, it's usually like in some target date fund, which is like a mutual
I think
fund.
so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it has like a year attached where you're expected to retire, like, it's some of
Hmm.
those kind of things. But again, the good thing is that, you guys are back on track and trying to contribute consistently. It's one of those things like just like what you mentioned with your high yield savings account, right? You put that
Hmm.
direct deposit even into the high yield savings account, which is an amazing power move, and
Hmm.
then you're able to also effectively do the same here, except it's not even direct deposit. It's just the company does it automatically,
Hmm.
which is really cool, really cool. And yeah, last but not least, real estate. So 56.4, which is awesome, by the way. So um, I love real estate, and it's definitely something I could talk about for a long time. But yeah, do you want to tell me more about this as much as you want, and I'll be more than happy to ask questions.
I don't know really what else to talk about real estate, but
Yep.
I think some people might have different opinions, but I think for me and my husband, like we just like one of the reasons why we moved to Las Vegas is to be able to buy a house, you know, as close as like in our 30s, and then like in our 40s. For like example, if we were to stay in California, it was just kind of like too hard of a reach. So and we know like I think we move at the right time and we buy at the right time. So we're just kind of like happy about it. It's kind of like a project. We can do a lot of different things in the house, hopefully increase the value. Um, I think we're just very fortunate because a lot of people take a long time to save for a down payment, but we actually get some help from our parents, kind of as like a belated wedding gift. So
Nice.
I'm just grateful,
Yeah.
and hopefully we'll be able to make this maybe like a rental property in the future when we maybe move on to like a bigger house, or like maybe hop into an RV or something, because a lot of people are doing it right now, you know.
Yeah,
I don't
van
know.
life. You
Yeah,
know,
it's
big,
so
big,
popular.
super, especially during the pandemic. You can't imagine. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, fascinating. And then with that, are you willing to talk about like percentage down and what that process was like to buy the home itself?
We could talk a bit about it, but we were able to put 20% down. That's why we were able to like avoid PMI and I don't know all of the other stuff. We were able to like get a, I guess, a pretty good rate at the time. But yeah,
Yeah,
it wasn't too hard, I think. You know, we had a really good real estate agent, and he was really like he was really understanding of like what we like. But then also because like his my husband's dad was also helping us with like, you know, house hunting and stuff, so we kind of have to not really get an approval for him, but like we want him to also like the house that we're buying into. And it was funny, like we like I thought that him and I would have really different like style, but we actually fell in love with this like house that we're in. And I was surprised because, you know, I thought because, you know, I mean, I thought he has a different style than me, but I'm just glad that he was, you know, we were able to like compromise. And usually my husband just go with the flow.
nice.
So it was just, you know, it was easy going with it.
I mean, it's all in the family, I mean, you have a lot of the influences growing up, I'm sure, and that's definitely a part of it. Um, so that's fascinating.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then with that, I would like to see, in the last since you moved 2 years ago, right? In the last 2 years,
Hmm.
Vegas and property values there have exploded. You guys had
Hmm.
the sports team. There's the hockey team there, the Knights, I think. Um,
The Las Vegas Golden Knights.
I think so. I
I
don't
think that's
know.
what it's called.
Yeah, there's them. You guys also have the Raiders that moved to Vegas as
Hmm.
well from Oakland. I know
Hmm.
people across the bay
Yep.
are very upset. I'm in San Francisco,
I
so it's like,
know.
they're very upset about it. You have like diehard Oakland Raider fans that are just
I
like
know.
crazy about it. And the Raiders have an interesting history, but that's a conversation for another podcast. Um, and so again, with two massive sports teams now in Vegas, since you pretty much
Hmm.
moved there right around the time where that was being announced, I think,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
I assume that combined with the outflow of Californians during the pandemic to Vegas, like when you guys checked the value of your house recently, is it was like
Hmm.
plus the principal payment into it, I think
Hmm.
is that was that uh exciting to see like a huge like was it like percentage wise like I assume at least double digit growth, maybe even like deep double digit growth for the property value.
I think so. Let me like usually I would check. I mean, I'm one of the weird people who have like Redfin on their phone.
Nice.
I pretty sure you probably have like a real estate um app, because I love to look around, but I think let me see.
Yeah, while you pull
Um
that up, I'll say I go on
mhm.
the websites and I try to avoid having apps on my phone just for whatever reason. But yeah, I do
Yeah.
go on Redfin and Zillow randomly. Like it's a bad habit. I mean, I just there's the SNL skit about Zillow, I think, where it was
Hmm.
like pretending Zillow was a dating app, but it
Uh-huh.
was a really good SNL skit. But anyway, yeah, I'm not sure if you're about to say something more, if you're pulling up Zillow or Redfin.
Oh, I was just gonna say like I think the house value like compared to like when like how much we bought it, it's grown like about $37,000.
Wow,
Like that's the
nice.
value of it, you know. And
Yeah.
I think it's pretty good because we've been here only for like a year-ish, you know.
Yeah, I mean that's like
So
20K a year,
hmm,
on
so
top
I'm
of that.
excited to see, you know, how the real estate market is gonna be here. But I know like there's a bunch of houses being built just like in where we are. And I don't know if you're familiar, but like in Vegas, there's a bunch of like plan, they call it plan neighborhood or plan community. So I think the land is owned by either the state or the county, and then they would sell it to like house developers, and they would create this like pocket
Mm,
neighborhoods There's a bunch of like one of the more fancy one is called the Lake Las Vegas community. There's
Ooh,
Cadence, there is Summerlin. I'm sure that's one of the area, and there's one more. Oh, it's called Anthem, kind of
hmm.
like closer to the M Resort, if you know where that is, kind of
Which
like on
resort?
the 15 there. The M Resort.
I don't think I know this.
Like if you drive from LA like on the 15 North, it's way before the strip,
Okay.
and it's just
Okay.
around that area.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of them here that I'm seeing popping up, and I think there's a couple new planned neighborhoods that I haven't even heard of. So yeah, it's gonna be
It's
pretty
good.
booming. I'm hoping it's not too much traffic because one of the reasons why we move out of LA is to avoid the
Avoid the trap.
traffic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's definitely interesting, but obviously the great appreciation on your property is incredible. Plus, you probably are again, it's the project you can continue to almost force that appreciation. Right now, you're just going
Mhm.
off of what Redfin is doing, but
Yeah.
realistically, it's like if you're adding additional uh if you're adding additional value to the property that Redfin doesn't even know about, then when you do get it appraised
Mhm.
later down the road, then for sure,
Mhm.
then you can even add that much more, value to the
Yeah.
house, right? Um,
Yeah.
and then the principal down payment, right? We just came from talking about your monthly spending. The principal down
Mhm.
payment is really just you paying yourself, right? But it's in like this weird piggy bank of your house. It's like the cash is there,
Mhm.
the equity's there. You could do a cash out
Mhm.
refinance if you wanted to. Um,
Yeah.
I guess you might actually be able to do that if you were going to be refinancing your house anyway. Um,
I think they did ask, but I said no because we're not really planning to do anything to the
mhm.
house or just like in our personal life in general.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it's okay.
Hey, yeah, I mean it's definitely a valid conversation to have for sure.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's definitely personal. So, um, yeah, I think that's fantastic, and I love the fact that you have that real estate, and it's just a huge, opportunity for growth and wealth. And people are talking
Mhm.
about, you have any fear of the like any potential real estate downturn or real estate crash? I'm not sure if you've been paying attention to like news at all, like in that perspective or with that context.
I mean, I can understand like why people are worried, especially if you're actually like, in real estate, like if you're an agent, if you're like an investor. But for now, I'm not really worried about it. Like
Hmm.
I feel like when you buy or sell, it's just when the time is right.
Yeah,
I mean, right now we just got this house. We're still here. I plan to live here for the next few years. So I'm not really
good
like
for you.
worried about it. I mean, I don't know. I almost want to say that I don't really care, you know, but it is what it is. There's gonna be ups and downs all the time.
Yeah,
I mean, I feel like we all expect it.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, realistically, you know, the cool thing about real estate is like, look, if the it's just like stocks in a sense, right? Like you don't realize those gains
Yeah.
or losses until you sell them. So you can just hold
Mm-hmm.
on until you feel comfortable with that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then also if something happens and you can move somewhere else and then rent out part of your place and not have to carry the whole
Mm-hmm.
burden of the the property or the payment.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
perfect. So again, we've been talking an amazing conversation. I really love, the time and the conversation here. I will also remind people as we're about to end the last few questions here, feel free to ask any questions yourselves in the chat. Feel free to be active and as participatory as you'd like. Really do appreciate everybody joining and sticking with us for going on an hour and 45 minutes almost
Almost two
here.
hours. Yeah.
So no, I do appreciate that. So thank you so much for joining. But some final questions here, so hopefully, fun ones as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I think what I'll do is I will just have it come back to just both of us. Uh, bam. So, when it comes to some of the current, we just spoke about real estate specifically. But before that, you've been talking a lot this whole time about Dave Ramsey, going back, talking with
Mm-hmm.
him. Um, how did you learn about him, and like was he your first major influence in what you're doing now, or was there somebody else or another article on the internet that had guided you to Dave Ramsey to start?
Well, I actually love to watch YouTube videos, and I follow this like one. YouTuber, I guess. I don't know, she calls herself like a lifestyle YouTuber, but then she's also a mommy YouTuber. But she was talking about how she has a lot of like student loan debt and she was trying to pay it off. And she introduced, like Dave Ramsey to her viewers. And because she's an influencer, so she influenced me to look into Dave Ramsey. And I think at the time, it was, I mean, I guess it was the only person that I kind of listened to be able to pay off my debt. And I'm not sure if you heard like about the recent, I don't know what people call it, drama or whatever about Dave Ramsey, but basically
Hmm.
people were really criticizing the way he teaches his like teachings. Like it was kind of like shaming people if like they're splurging on something. But honestly, like you don't have to follow all of his like steps, right? Like for me at least, like I like to share like what I do, when I budget my monthly whatever and how I pay off my debt. But it's just like for your information, you can take it with a grain of salt and kind of like adjust and make it work for you, because you're the one who will be you're the one who's doing your own monthly budget. I'm not the one who's like doing it for you. So like you should be able to feel comfortable doing what other people might tell you what to do, but you know for me you have to adjust it that so that it will work for you. So I think Dave Ramsey was one of like the major influence for me to really look into like my finances, because before him I never had a budget. I never know where my money goes. But I also understand like the way he just kind of like I think he's working on like tough love, so you would not go back to your old habit. But it works for some people, it doesn't work for some people. But again, just like kind of take it with a grain of salt and just work it out for your own benefits.
Right.
You don't have to follow everything.
Yeah, I mean it's general guidance and you can personalize it to your own world and take what you
Yeah,
like and don't take
live
what you
what
don't
you
like.
don't like.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree.
awesome. And then uh you know, I would say, is there a certain we spoke about swag for budgeting. We
Hmm.
spoke about a couple other uh I guess principles that you've been following to help get yourself out of the credit card debt and other debt that you're in. Um,
Hmm.
is there a particular strategy that we haven't discussed that you want to talk more about, or anything that's top of mind that uh, you wanted to mention that before we kind of wrap up here?
No, I think actually we get to talk about a lot of the stuff that about budgeting and all of that. So yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. And then, are there any other? Obviously, you spoke about Amex checking, and I mentioned Wealthfront because that's just what I love and recommend.
Hmm.
Um, is there anything? Are there other platforms that you use or want to talk about?
I think well, I actually just started kind of investing with Acorns.
Nice.
I think I heard about it like a long time ago, because I'm pretty sure it was Ashton Kutcher who was talking about it. Um, and I just feel like because this is the year that I want to also learn about investing, so I just signed up for it, and then I've been using it, and I like it because again it's one of those set it and forget it. You just let it grow and let it like take some of your change out of like your bank account and invest it in something. And I think my husband uses Coinbase for crypto, right?
Hmm.
Okay. And then I think he uses Robinhood also for his stocks. Um, but I think other stuff that I use is Fidelity. I think that's
Yep.
what my employer
Retirement.
chose to do 401k, and also a new one called T. Rowe Price. I
Yeah,
don't
T. Rowe
think,
Price.
right? You've heard of it? Okay.
I've
I've never
seen
heard of it before.
commercials. Yeah, maybe they're East Coast
Oh,
before
okay.
when I was growing up. They used to like sponsor, I think like
Mm,
I used to watch a lot of tennis tournaments and whatnot, and I think there's always T.
okay.
Rowe Price. Yeah.
Oh, I've never heard of it. So I was kind of like a bit sketchy, but I guess they're decent.
They're
So
legit. They're legit.
yeah, okay,
They're
good,
definitely
good.
good. Yeah, between them and the Allstate commercials, those were like what I feel like I always remembered growing up. Um, yeah, I don't know why they stuck with me, but they did. But yeah, very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I think all great platforms and yeah, super cool to learn about. I
Hmm.
think there was one that you listed called Logix, I think.
Oh, it's just like credit union that we opened like an account with back in California, I think. But
Interesting.
yeah, that's just, I
Yeah,
mean, I just like it because, um, I think we got some referral money from like our
nice.
friends because we opened with like their referral, but we just decided to keep it because I think at the time like I only want just like one checking account, so it's easier for me when I do the budget. But my husband always said like, we should have a few different ones just in case something happened to the bank or something crazy happened. We at least have a backup money. So I think that's also a good thing. Like if you're someone who doesn't like to have multiple accounts, honestly, you just gotta have multiple accounts, just for like, I don't know, safety purposes, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I do have multiple accounts, and it's more of like I like to try different things out. I'm an experimenter.
Hmm.
Like I'll put a little bit of money into different things and see
Yeah.
how it goes, and if I like it, then great,
Hmm.
and I'll adopt it fully, and if not, then no harm, no foul. I'll take my money back out and close the account if I need to,
Yeah.
and whatever. I mean, and yeah, I mean, Wealthfront's one of them. I have a couple others, and if you, yeah, like if anybody is interested, I do have affiliate links in the description here of like my favorite recommended one for counts for all the things, um, from crypto to again checkings and savings and whatnot. But yeah, it's been I love learning about new platforms and what they're offering. And of course, most referral links, just like you
Hmm.
said, they come with some benefit, right? Like
Free
I
money.
think, yeah, 100% free money, or for some like Wealthfront on their management thing, it's like you get like $10,000 like managed for free, so you don't even have to pay
Oh,
a
wow.
fee for that too.
Hmm.
So it's
Hmm.
again like those types of things are fascinating. And
Hmm.
that said, I like to end with two questions. One, is there one thing that we haven't discussed yet that is like your favorite, most exciting things to talk about personal finance, or something you might want to recap that we did talk about that is your most favorite thing that about of your personal finances right now as well?
I think I just want to say that like personal finance is called personal. So like I mean, you could follow other people's personal finance, but like I said, many times, like take it with a grain of salt, make sure you customize it, make sure that you can actually do it every single month, and if you are kind of like hesitating if you can keep up a budget or not, like think about think like don't think about it as a task, but it's so easy, like especially once you're able to set it up, right? Like I don't know about you, but I love templates, so I rarely change up my budget template because I use it all the time. Every single month I just basically copy and paste it until like forever, so I think people need to think about budgeting as something that is fun, make it easy, make it simple, so you don't have to like dread doing it.
Yeah, love that. Love that. And of course, with mnemonics like swag, I think people are already ready to go there. That's awesome. And my last question for you, unless we have some random ones that pop up in the chat in the last minute or two, is do you have any guilty pleasures, something that you just love to, just something small or big that you will splurge on if given the opportunity, that is just like your guilty pleasure? We've talked so much about budgeting and being good and like the
Hmm.
best steps to either get out of debt and or like stay out of debt and grow your wealth, but is there a certain guilty pleasure that you're just like, yes, I'm always almost down for that if it's like a reward or something?
I think before the pandemic, I would talk to my husband about, okay, we should go to this cruise or we should go to, wherever. I think if I'm able to like buy into vacation, that is definitely one of the things that I would love to splurge. But obviously you can't really do it right now too much, hopefully very soon. But yeah, I think at the time before like the pandemic, cruising is one of the things that I try to buy into, but my husband would always be like, no, stop buying into cruises. But I think that's the one thing that I I do.
Big cruise
And
person.
other like, yeah, other small stuff is just, Amazon, just I don't know, girly stuff, I guess.
KitchenAid stuff, yeah.
Yeah, KitchenAid stuff.
Yeah, a little plug there again for that. That's awesome. And but yeah, so I've really thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I hope everybody else on the
Me
internet
too.
has appreciated it as well. If people want to follow up with you and maybe learn more from your budgeting tips, techniques, and maybe get one of those toolkits that we had mentioned at the beginning, I know there are links again in the
Hmm.
description. But where would you like them to find you and follow you for more information?
I do have a YouTube channel. I kind of talk about a mash of stuff there, but recently I post more like personal finance, kind of like money saving tips, and I also like to talk about like wedding planning. And I talk some ways you can save on, planning a wedding and all of that. Do have Instagram, which is how David and I get connected, and I do have a TikTok, like you mentioned before. But I think those are the three like ways you can come hang out with me, chat with me, message me if you want to. And I also have like a free downloadable budget startup kit. I think you have the link, right? Also
Yep.
somewhere.
It's all in the description, wherever it might be, somewhere in this the screen somewhere in the description of the
Yeah. So
video.
like, okay, so that's kind of like the template that I personally use to like create my own budget. It has kind of like a checklist of like all of the things that you need to create your own budget. And hopefully if you do download that, it will be helpful and get you on a budget so you can do whatever you want with your money.
Awesome. Love that. Very excited again to help all the amazing people who hopefully are watching this video to get them onto the right track and budgeting correctly, getting themselves potentially out of debt and on their road to financial freedom, however that looks for them.
Yeah.
So we'll log
Mm-hmm.
off of the live here and say thank you guys for joining. Thank you, Sarah, so much for your time, energy, and the planning and the preparation for today's event. Really genuinely love and appreciate the support and the conversations that we've had. And for everybody, out there, keep doing big things and looking forward to the next episode, hopefully coming again pretty soon. So,
Yeah, David, thank you so much for having me, and I'm excited to where your show is gonna go. I'll
yeah,
keep an eye on this
very
for
excited. Well,
sure.
we might have a follow up, check in later as well, and that would be fantastic to
Yeah.
see,
Mm-hmm.
how things
Mm-hmm.
are going, and if we were able, if you reached your goal of the emergency fund and everything too, and then check in and
Yeah.
see, the investment portion of the conversation we're going to be able to dive super deep on potentially in the next year too. So
Mm-hmm. Sounds
very cool.
good.
All right, well again, we'll say bye to everybody on the internet. Thank you so much for joining and keep doing big things, guys. Thanks.
Bye.